Edmonton Tate was very small, and so the Australian wine industry has been through a massive boom, and in my mind there's just been so much created, in the sense there's so many talented, whether they're winemakers, viticulturists, just any people just working in the wine industry. There's so much experience there now, plus the establishment of vineyards, throughout, particularly, from my point of view, Margaret River and Great Southern and places like that. So I always saw an opportunity that the industry can only grow so much. It should only really be a cottage industry run by family people. I find it very hard to see big companies being share market driven and having shareholders and those sorts of things. It's a pretty unique industry, based on the things that it's agriculture, in the sense that you can never guarantee anything, and you can't guarantee volume or price or anything like that. So I always sort of saw that opportunity would happen, that a lot of winemakers would say, I've kind of had enough of this as well, like I'm sick of making huge amounts of wine, more commercial, and they'll go off and do their own thing. So that's why we, quite a few years ago, sort of saw an opportunity to do something ourselves, and that's when we ran with it. And also, the industry being in a very tough time, I think that's the best time to set yourself up, because that's where the opportunities are, and that's where the vineyards became available. So fortunately for a lot of the vineyards that we had, they were in going to very top tier wines with very top tier wineries, but they had to start rationalising. And so basically, it took years of dealing with these different vineyards, but that's when we looked at securing those vineyards into our own wine portfolio, and then the opportunity to buy our own property as well. So people were steering away from buying vineyards and vineyard properties. So we kind of got in at a really good point there as well. So we're hoping that we're producing what we've been saying, and that we can set ourselves up really strong for the future. And that's why the vineyards are the most important things, because we've got a lot more vineyards under our control than what we need for our own wine. But that's so that as the brand grows, the wines don't change. It's the same wine, and we've got access to it. And that's the whole thing about securing the production for the future. So
there was one particular vineyard that had been under contract to a really well-known, well-regarded brand for over 15 years. And Jeremy spent about 3 years just going and having a cup of tea with the owner of the vineyard and just trying to work his way in. And after about 3 years, and this guy was getting a little bit sort of disenchanted with some of the, bigger company kind of things that was leading what he was doing in the vineyard. So after about 3 years of persistence, we managed to get the vineyard. So, Jeremy also works very hard at ensuring that it is a mutually beneficial relationship between us and the vineyard. And I think a lot of wineries in Australia, and I'm sure it's not just in Australia, but where the growers have sort of been a bit of in the underdog position as there's been an oversupply of wine. So one of the most important things for us is that, the deal has to work for the vineyard and the deal has to work for us. And if it doesn't work for both people, the fruit's never going to be as good as it can be, and the relationship's not going to last for the long term. So he's worked really hard to set up those relationships, and I think the proof is in the wines that he's making.
So you were some of the first to taste the reserve Chardonnay? Probably
Yes.
the first in Singapore?
yeah, so it's only just been released in Australia as well. So interesting that that's the vineyard we're talking about, that this particular Chardonnay comes off. So
After 3 years.
Sorry?
Is this
3 years of chipping.
of chipping away
Of getting the vineyard. So this is the first vintage from that site. So one of the
where's
main
the
reasons,
location?
location, it's in Treaton, which is almost
How do you spell it?
Treeton. So it's Treaton sub-region of Margaret River.
Okay.
So location-wise, it's just a little bit further south of Margaret River and just a little bit inland, but it's still very close.
Okay.
Close to the ocean. The reason why we first got into the vineyard was mainly for the Cabernet and the Merlot. It's fantastic coming off there, but then the quality of the Semillon and the Sauvignon Blanc plus the Chardonnay off there, you can't go past vineyards like that. It's quite rare sometimes to find a vineyard that will produce all the varieties that you want. It might be suited to more Cabernet as opposed to Chardonnay or the different varieties. So this particular vineyard produces outstanding quality across the board. So this particular Chardonnay comes off there. It's 100% the Gingin clone that I was talking about. Winemaking wise, exactly the same as the first Chardonnay. So my winemaking style doesn't really change when it comes to this. It gets a little bit more, it gets about 40% new weight, but I still am looking at not dominating the fruit characters of the wine with oak. Like I couldn't do 100% brand new oak on a wine. I'm looking for that basically that middle point that it's perfect between structure and fruit and aromatics and that sort of thing. So the only thing I would say is different. It's almost finer again. So a lot of people you'll find when they make a reserve wine, it just becomes bigger and more powerful.
This is very mineral.
This is a finer style of wine, and that almost shows what we're trying to do with vineyards, because our very best vineyards are ones that can produce great flavours and balance at low sugar levels. So they're a really delicate style of wine. So we picked that quite early. It's about 11 Beaumet. We end up with about 11.5 Beaumet, end up with about 13% alcohol. Same style, so there's no malo. It's aged on its lees for 9 months with minimal stirring once a month, and then we put it into bottles. So it's a very elegant style of wine. It's just got this amazing acidity on the palate. It just persists for forever.
So what's the gross tonnage of this grapes that you bought from them before it entered the?
Well, see, it was a problem again for this vineyard.
But how much did you
So
buy?
we only made 170 cases of
Wow.
this wine. So yeah, small. Yeah, but potentially, it could
So
be
there was a
making
reduction in volume. That
a
was
huge reduction. So it wasn't a quality issue. It was just purely because the flowering was upset during vintage. We had a big weather
So
event.
if it wasn't for the flowering, what would the normal gross output from this vineyard be for the Chardonnay?
I think for us, the max we'd probably let it get to, because we also manage the vineyard in the sense that we don't want to overcrop it, but we don't
Yep.
want to undercrop it as well.
Okay.
I think a lot of people talk about dropping fruit on the ground.
So you were also responsible for the canopy management?
It's 100%
Okay,
under
all under you.
our control.
Okay.
And this is a particular vineyard that we'll grow into as well. So obviously a lot of people want access to that vineyard. So what we don't want, we on sell. So probably the best, we could probably make up to about 1,000 cases off this vineyard in a good year.
Wow.
That's probably the most we do.
That's remarkable, isn't
Yeah.
it? 1,000 to 175 for the two.
Yeah, there's room to move. So
Nice to know of you, Jeremy, for the 2016.